Hey there, this is your head coach, Steve Hopkins with Jordan River Group, and I wanted to jump into a short series that we're going to call Quiet Quitting. Have you heard that phrase? Ugh, I've heard it, and I don't know whether I'm annoyed by it or I'm inspired to dig into it more. I know when I hear phrases that start to get overused a little bit, it kind of gets under my skin. I don't know about you, words like innovation and some of these things they kind of get overdone, right? Well, quiet quitting is certainly getting plenty of run right now, and I thought, well, first of all, do we care about this? What is it? And are there some things that we can think about to help it if it's important? And we could throw some different labels around if we wanted to call it something different. I'll let you be the judge of that. But certainly, when I dug into this and started to really think about this, as I was sorting out my own problems for my company and the other companies I help support, for me, quiet quitting became a real thing that maybe we just hadn't put a label on for a long time, and maybe it didn't have the acceleration and the volume that we're experiencing now. But this has been going on for a while, and I think it's fair time that we take notice of it and decide to strategize about it a little bit. But hey, let's not get the cart before the horse here. Let's talk about what we're speaking of. Quiet quitting is kind of that experience when an employee is kind of disengaged, right? And we're talking about the difference between kind of holding a position and barely doing what's needed to check the box off that I'm fulfilling my job description, or maybe barely, just maybe testing the limits, even as like how little can I do without getting fired, versus being excited and all in and ambitious and desirous and being a team member and opting in for not just their job description, but for more, the desire to help out, the desire to solve problems, right? And really be engaged, right? Have you experienced two different employees that you can think of in that space? Or maybe you've even experienced it before. I think of a job or two where I was probably experiencing quiet quitting myself because of all kinds of factors and was kind of playing that role. And then other times, obviously, when I've been all in. And so it begs the question of like, what is our responsibility, or what do we need? What needs to be present to avoid quiet quitting, right? To avoid the slip back, the disengagement, the bare minimum type of experience. And I think, uh, the intuitive answer to that is we need to create an environment and have environments where employees want to engage. They want to engage, right? People want to find a place where they can unleash themselves and feel compelled to do and give and connect with their passions and their talents and abilities. We all look for that, even if we're still in school. Like sometimes it's like, what class would I take where I can be engaged, and what class do I have to take? And I'm just going to do the bare minimum to get by because I'm really not into this, right? That's a school experience that we can have as well. So creating environments where people want to engage, okay? And how do we do that? Well, in this first episode right now, I'm just going to talk about kind of a big overlying topic, and that's kind of the difference maybe from where we've come in some of the philosophies, our responsibilities, and the essence of work, and where we are going, where we are now, and where we're going, maybe to help us think about that. All right. So let's go back in time a little bit. Maybe you can label it in any way that you have with relatives or thinking backwards and old school. And of course, this is just a little bit of a assumption and aggregation of some roles. Back in the day, maybe not even that long ago, work was very, very transactional. In other words, job description, all right, matched with your capability, all right, was the contract, and the other end of the contract was an hourly rate or a salary. So if you looked at this and felt like you could do it and were selected to do this is what the job description required. Then on the other side, you get paid, and maybe there's some benefits, and if you stay long enough, got a pension, maybe a gold watch, whatever that was. Okay. But anyway, set level of expectations transacted with compensation. All right. And quite honestly, there were lots and lots of instances where that was so fulfilling. It was like the known element of what that role was, and I could do it. And the contract was the most valuable part of that relationship, right? The known contract, the expectations, the confidence in the future, that was that was expectation. Well, now things have changed a little bit, and these arrangements, these working relationships are much more just that, relationships, relational. So it's expanded on what the desire and expectation is into another set of hopes and desires and even expectations, right? It's very competitive out there. There's many, 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 many more jobs than there ever were before, even if we look back to 30, 40, 50 years ago. The diversity of type of roles, types of setting, number of companies, it's just expanded, all right? And so by nature, people can be a little choosier, especially in the economy that we're in today. And so the transaction component is not enough. The relational part is really important as well. And what are we talking about? Additional relational parts of a worker and employee and supervisor or company experience? Well, things like I want a great working environment with my peers, great people around me, a safe environment to work and be myself, challenging and exciting work, growth and development. All these things now are elements that are required for somebody to lean in and do and give more than the basic minimum amount. If those things aren't there, and the person still needs a job so desperately that they're just matching up competence, or maybe they had the experience and it's dwindled down and been disappointing to them, then we slide back into quiet quitting and regress to just the bare minimum, or sometimes even less than that job requirement was asking for. All right, so these things are really important. So if we have that in our working experience, how do we fix it? All right, and I'm going to, at the end of this, give you a preview of a couple other bullet points that we're going to focus on, but I'm going to focus on a couple things right now. If you feel like you have some quiet quitters, or you feel like even you as a supervisor or your organization or your team has kind of slipped back to having more of that experience, people that are disengaged really need to question the environment. And are we still sitting in a transactional environment like, hey, you're not just focused on your job description, or have we committed to any of the relational components as well? All right. And if we find ourselves in that situation, the first thing I would say is that we want to come up with creative ways to rebuild or reinvest in strong relationships. All right. Remember, in the transactional, again, we're using kind of these biased or stereotypical words. In a transactional relationship, really it's more about the bullet points and the competence and then the payment. All right. It really doesn't matter that much about who you are. All right. And so in a relational environment, we want to focus a bit more on building trust and having connection with people. And so if you're experiencing some quiet quitters, you might want to take a look at that and come up with creative ways to invest in rebuilding it. And some of that could be new investment, and other could be regaining trust. All right. We've had some bad things happen on our team, maybe. We've had some mistakes happen and people are starting to doubt, and so they're regressing back and they're kind of watching from afar. We need to be proactive and take on the steps to rebuild trust. If you need help with that, let me know for sure. We can talk about 2 or 3 key things you can do to start building the building blocks of trust again. All right, it is repairable. We want to just think about that. All right. The second thing is this whole thing about aligned outcomes and being very open and communicative and transparent about what the aligned outcomes are, the things that can be expectations about the voyage ahead. All right, no secrets, no hidden agendas. Really blatant about the hopes and desires of high points of the experience, the good parts of the role, the good parts of the company, and why I want you to be all in, and as transparent about, hey, the trade-off is there's a couple crappy parts to this as well, and we want to be ready for it. And we're all in on that. And we got to get through some of those things, all right? Not to bury those and hide those so that people get caught off guard by them and then feel like they were kind of swindled in, talked into, or coerced into a situation without knowing kind of what it's going to take, right? The battle's the battle, and then, oh, there's some hidden things here that you didn't tell me about. That's never fun as well, and kind of has an impact on the trust part of the equation that we talked about in the first part. All right, so be transparent about the positive hopes that you have, as well as maybe the challenging parts ahead, and that links everybody together in the voyage and the transparency of the voyage. And remember, I mean, if you want employees to give more than they're giving right now, we have to give more too, right? That just is intuitive, right? We need more, want more. We should look in the mirror and say, what more can I do, give, or respond with? And that's really important. All right, so build trusting relationships, communicate openly about expectations. All right, and so maybe it's just opportunity to gut check and say, hey, I've got some people that are kind of standoffish. I got some people that are barely completing the job description. All right, and of course it could be training, it could be lots of things. But if quiet quitting, all right, the environment is not quite conducive to a relational type of opportunity that today's folks are looking for, it'd be a great opportunity to kind of peer into this. In the coming little segments ahead, we're going to talk about fostering their voice a little bit more. We're going to talk about high quality work. We're going to talk about how we can provide recognition and respect. All right, we're just going to touch on these things as elements to quiet quitting. So stay tuned for the next ones. And again, if any of these pieces you feel like you need some help on, or you want one practice tip or one activity to lend itself to something we've talked about today, just reach back out to us. We're happy to get a dialogue going about ways to infuse this in your team. All right, look forward to seeing you on the next episode.